Tithonus is a dramatic monologue, and in this poem, Alfred Lord Tennyson is retelling a Greek myth. The poem's speaker is Tithonus himself, and Tithonus was a legendary prince of Troy who fell in love with Eos, goddess of the dawn. Wanting to be with his lover forever, Tithonus begged her to make him immortal, and she granted the wish, but she neglected to make him immortally youthful. And when this poem takes place, Tithonus has grown ancient and longs for the ordinary, humble, mortal faith that he earlier rejected. Death becomes almost his only desire, but he is unable to experience the inevitability of death like ordinary mortals. He is immortal, but he is aging at the same time. This is the plight of Tithonus. The narrative revolves around this man, this mortal man from Greek mythology, and he suffers the agony of aging without the release of death. The woods decay and fall. The woods rot away and fall. The vapors weep their burden to the ground. The mists drizzle their burden of water on the ground. Man comes and tills the field and lies beneath. Human beings are born and they farm the land, and then they lie buried beneath them. And after many a summer dies the swan. After long lives, swans also die. Here Tennyson starts with the natural process of aging and decay in the woods, emphasizing the natural cycle of life and decay. There is a repetition, the woods decay, to emphasize this natural cycle of life and decay in the woods. The vapors weep their burden to the ground. Here, vapors, this is personified. The vapors weep their burden. What is the meaning of vapors weep? This line portrays the image of dew or rain symbolizing tears falling to the ground. And this again stresses upon nature's cycle of renewal and loss. Man comes and tills the field. Man works on the field and eventually die. Transitory nature of man's life on earth. Ephemerality of man's life on earth. Man becomes a part of the earth again, illustrating the human life cycle over here. And after many a summer dies the swan. Summer, swan, figure of speech, alliteration. Even creatures as beautiful and timeless as swans eventually die. This also highlights the inevitability of death. Death will overpower everyone. The poem begins with Tithonus describing how sorrowful the naturally aging woods make him. Unlike all other elements of the world, he is unable to die. He is slowly being consumed by the hours of his life that will never end. His life will never end. He will never experience the release of death in his life because he is living a cursed life. Me only cruel immortality consumes. Here, immortality is personified as being cruel. Me only cruel immortality consumes. Again, cruel and consumes, alliteration. What is the mood of the speaker? What is the mood of Tithonus in these lines? There is frustration and deep disappointment in these words of Tithonus. He is frustrated. Tithonus is singled out as the only one cursed with immortality, contrasting his fate with the natural cycles around him. He is stuck in the east with his once beloved Eos, who is the cause of his wretched state. He will never die. He will never experience death in his life. Here at the quiet limit of the earth. Now, what is the quiet limit of the earth. Tithonus is immortal. The immortality that the speaker possesses consumes him, causing him to gradually wither away in the arms of immortality. And as discussed, immortality is personified over here. Tithonus is at the edge of the world, a boundary between the mortal and immortal realms, isolated and alone. Others are born and they die, but Tithonus is always ever present on earth. Here in the silence of the world's farthest limits, he resembles a white-haired shadow like a dream. This is the pitiable plight of Tithonus. In the first 4 lines of the poem, what do we have? These lines contain the keynote of the poem. Woods, clouds, human beings, swans, all have their fixed time and then they pass away. But Tithonus's immortality is the cause of his everlasting life on earth, and he is not at all happy with his immortal existence. Consumes means eats up. The worry of deathlessness eats Tithonus up every day. He leads a troubled life. The fact that he cannot die troubles him, eats him, and this anxiety is eating him within from inside. I wither slowly in thine arms. Wither. What is the meaning of wither slowly? Fade away bit by bit. With the passage of time, he is growing older. And this process is slow, but he is changing. In thine arms. In whose arms? In the arms of his beloved. Here at the quiet limit of the world. The reference is to the quiet verge of the eastern horizon, which is the home of Eos, the goddess of dawn. A white-haired shadow roaming like a dream. Simile, figure of speech, simile. The ever-silent spaces of the east, far-folded mists and gleaming halls of morn. Far-folded, far-away regions covered with mists, and gleaming means shining, halls of morn, eastern sky. What is the meaning of these lines? He is like a white-haired shadow roaming, wandering all alone, isolated, alienated from others like a dream. And this is the pitiable state of Tithonus, a shadowy figure who was once a man so gloriously beautiful and so gloriously lucky to be chosen by none other than the goddess of dawn, Eos. And he felt himself so lucky that he was filled with pride. So before moving on to the next section, I'll quickly discuss these lines in detail. He is described over here as a ghostly, dreamlike figure. And this simile emphasizes his detachment from the physical world. He roams through the silent and vast landscapes of the east where Eos reigns, and this intensifies the sense of desolation. He is all alone. The speaker encounters misty and folded landscapes along with shining halls illuminated by the morning light. And here we have a contrast between darkness and light. And the meaning of gleaming, I have already told you, shine brightly, especially with reflecting light. Alas, for this grey shadow, alas. This shows his disappointment, his frustration. He is sad. Alas, for this grey shadow, once a man. Here we have a contrast between Tithonus's past and present. His past youthfulness and strength versus his present feeble stature. His fragile existence. Now, the speaker laments his current state as a grey shadow, emphasizing that he was once a vibrant and powerful man. But now, with the passage of time, he is no longer a young man full of vigor and vitality. He is weak, physically weak, mentally devastated, and he has been reduced to a shadowy form. And grey is a color which is not associated with something bright and cheerful. The color grey suggests the disappointed state of the pitiable state, the miserable condition of Tithonus. Once a man so glorious in his beauty and thy choice, Eos's choice, who madest him thy chosen, that he seemed to his great heart none other than a god. Here we have self-pride of Tithonus, self-pride as well as vanity of Tithonus. He was once glorious and beautiful, chosen by the goddess of immortality, and he addresses Eos as thy. The goddess made him her chosen one, and in his heart he believed himself to be nothing less than a god. Self-pride and vanity, and this is his hubris. This is his fatal flaw. I ask thee, give me mortality, then didst thou grant mine, asking with a smile like wealthy men who care not how they give. The speaker considered himself equal to a god because of the love and favor bestowed upon him by none other than the goddess of dawn, Eos, and therefore he wanted to be immortal. The speaker in these lines recounts asking the goddess to grant him immortality. So he wanted to be immortal, and the goddess granted his request willingly with a smile, happily. Like wealthy men who care not how they give, the goddess granted his wish like wealthy individuals who give without considering the consequences. Again, this is the flaw of the goddess. She granted him immortality and she forgot to grant him immortal youth also. This suggests the careless nature of the goddess's granting of his wish of immortality. But thy strong hours, personification of ours, but thy strong hours indignant worked their wills, worked and wills, the figure of speech, alliteration. So, Eos, with a smile, granted Tithonus' wish, as casually as a wealthy man hands out money. But her servants, thy strong hours, but her servants, the hours offended, worked away on Tithonus. How did they teach Tithonus a lesson? Worked their wills and bet me down and marred and wasted me. So what did they do? They battered Tithonus, spoiled him and withered him. The relentless passage of time, personified as strong hours, worked against the speaker's desire for immortality. Hours were angry that Tithonus was able to resist death. According to the natural cycle of life and death, death is inevitable. One who is born must die. But when Tithonus wished for immortality, he went against the natural cycle of life and death. And this made the passage of time, the hours, angry with him. And in order to take their revenge upon Tithonus, what did they do? They let his body grow old because of the goddess's casual nature of granting Tithonus his wish, of fulfilling his wish. His wish was fulfilled, but ultimately he had to pay a heavy price for it. And then, and though they could not end me, they taught him a lesson. They took revenge upon Tithonus, but they could not end his life. Why? Because he was granted immortality. Left me maimed to dwell in the presence of immortal youth. Immortal age beside immortal youth. So, what was his punishment? Though the Arts had limited powers, they forced Tithonus to live alongside Eos and her immortal youth, to dwell in presence of immortal youth. Immortal age beside immortal youth. Age that cannot die next to youth that will never grow old. And all I was in ashes. Downfall of Tithonus. Everything he once was has now turned to ashes. And he asked whether the goddess's love for him could compensate for his current state of decay and despair. Can your love, your beauty make amends? Though even now, close over us, the silver star they guide. Silver star, we have alliteration over here once again. The figure of speech, alliteration. Tithonus is surrounded by agelessness and youthfulness, and this shows the contrast between his own aged state and the perpetual youth of Eos. And all I was in ashes. Downfall of Tithonus. Past versus present, and his downfall caused due to his hubris. Close over us the silver star thy guide. The speaker questions whether the goddess's beauty can make up for his suffering even at this moment. And the goddess's guiding star, depicted as a silver star, shines over them, symbolizing her presence. And thy here refers to Eos. Can your love for me, your beauty make up for this suffering? Even now, as the silver star that guides you hangs right over our heads and reflects in your eyes, which tremble with tears at my words, shines in those tremulous, tearful eyes that fill with tears to hear me. Let me go, take back thy gift of immortality. Why should a man desire in any way to vary from the kindly race of men or pass beyond the goal of ordinance where all should pause as is most meet for all? Please let me die, take back the gift of immortality. Why should any man want to be set apart from the rest of the gentle human race or trespass beyond the reasonable limits of human life, the boundary where everyone should stop, as is right and fitting? He realizes his mistake over here. Now, before moving on to this section, I'll quickly give you one reference. The silver star. Here, the silver star, thy guide, refers to the planet Venus or the morning star, which is the herald of the dawn. Let me go, let me die. Why should a man desire in any way to vary, to differ? Kindly race, same race of mankind, and goal of ordinance, laws of nature. Why must a man dare to reverse the natural cycle of life and death? This is his fatal flaw. This is his mistake. And here he realizes this mistake. He is now helpless. The speaker notices the goddess's eyes filling with tears which tremble with emotion, and he requests the goddess to release him from his immortal existence and take back the gift of immortality. He questions why any man would desire to deviate from the natural course of life and seek immortality. So, reversal of natural cycle of life and death. This is not possible. Or pass beyond the goal of ordinance suggests the all-powerful nature to surpass the limit set by nature, where all should pause. It is appropriate for all human beings to reach a point where they must pause and come to an end. Everlasting life is unnatural. A soft air fans the cloud apart. There comes a glimpse of that dark world where I was born. A gentle breeze parts the clouds, and Tithonus can see below him a glimpse of the dark world he came from. Once more, the old mysterious glimmer steals from thy pure brows and from thy shoulders pure. Once again, he sees the old mysterious shimmer. Glimmer means shine, shimmer, on the lovely forehead of Eos, and on her lovely shoulders, pure, lovely, beautiful, and bosom beating with a heart renewed. And he can feel Eos's heart beating with fresh strength. Thy cheek begins to redden through the gloom. Dear students, try to understand this section. Thy cheek begins to redden through the gloom. The cheek of Eos begins to blush through the darkness. Through the gloom means through the darkness. Thy sweet eyes brighten slowly close to mine. So the beautiful eyes of Eos looking into the eyes of Tithonus slowly brighten. Before, yet they blind the stars. Yet they blind the stars. They have not yet grown so bright as they will be when they put out the light of the stars. In daylight, stars become invisible. Stars become obscure. And the wild team. What is the meaning of this expression, the wild team? White horses drawing the rose-colored chariot of goddess Eos, which love thee, yearning for thy yoke. The wild band of horses who love you will rise up. And when they will rise up, they will be eager for you to hitch them to your chariot. Yearning for thy yoke, alliteration. The white horses looking forward to draw the chariot of Eos. So, in the morning, during the break of dawn, Eos will ride on her chariot drawn by her horses, the wild team. And in this way, the horses will shake the darkness from their loosened manes. The darkness of the night, they will shake off the darkness of the night from their manes and beat the twilight and charge through the twilight, fanning its faded coals into flakes of fire. Flakes of fire, alliteration, fanning its faded coals into the fresh flames of sunrise. Very important. Time before dawn, twilight into flakes of fire, refers to the time before dawn when sun is below the horizon and there are rays of golden light. Lo, ever thus thou growest beautiful in silence, then before thine answer given departest, and thy tears are on my cheek. So this is the emotional parting between the two lovers. Oh, you always begin shining this way. Since Eos was the goddess of dawn, she carried out this activity every morning. Every morning of Tithonus's life, he is forced to see the sun rise and observe Eos's chariot take her into the sky. Every day, he asks her to take back what she had given. That is the gift of immortality, but he receives no answer from Eos. He fears that she is unable to retract something she has already given. The gift that she has already given. So before Eos gives him any answer, she always leaves. She always departs because it is the time for dawn, and she is the goddess of dawn. And thy tears are on my cheek. Her tears still wet on the face of Tithonus. Why wilt thou ever scare me with thy tears and make me tremble lest a saying learnt in days far off on that dark earth be true? The gods themselves cannot recall their gifts. Again, another lesson learnt. So, here Tithonus asks Eos, "Why must you always frighten me with your crying? You make me shake, fearing that a saying I heard long ago on earth is true." And what is the saying? What is the lesson that he had learnt many years ago? The lesson was the gods themselves cannot recall their gifts. The limitation of gods. Even the gods cannot take back their gifts. Amy, Amy, with what another heart. The speaker exclaims in lament, reflecting on how his heart has changed. With what another heart refers to the heart when he was young, in days far off, and with what other eyes I used to watch, if I be he that watched the lucid outline forming round thee, saw the dim curls kindle into sunny rings. So, alas, alas, how differently I felt. How differently I felt long ago, and how differently I saw, if that long lost self was even the same person as me. The shimmering light beginning to gather around you, and your dark hair beginning to catch fire and glow with sunlight. The dim curls kindle into sunny rings. He used to watch in days long ago and with different eyes. The speaker over here questions his own identity and wonders if he is truly the person who once observed the goddess. He recalls witnessing the clear outline of the goddess taking shape. He remembers how her dark curls would transform into radiant sunny rings. We all know that she is the goddess of dawn. And during the daytime, the dim curls kindle into sunny rings because of the rising sun. Changed with thy mystic change, and felt my blood glow with the glow that slowly crimsoned all. After the rising sun, after the sun rose in the east, everything turned crimson. Thy presence and thy portals, while I lay, mouth, forehead, eyelids growing dewy warm, with kisses balmier than half opening buds of April. Again, I'll try to explain this section line by line. So, listen to me carefully once again. I used to watch, if I be he that watched the lucid outline forming round thee, the break of dawn, the rising of the sun, saw the dim curls kindle into sunny rings. Tithonus watched Eos make this magical transformation, and as he watched her make this magical transformation, he also changed. How did he change? Felt my blood glow with the glow. He felt his blood glow with the same sunrise warmth that slowly flushed Eos's body and her palace. Thy presence and thy portals. Portals, gates. Here, eastern sky. Glow with the glow that slowly crimson dawn. Thy presence and thy portals, presence, portals, alliteration, and the meaning, with your bright glow which made your presence and your portals reddish in color. Portals, gates, here eastern sky. I have already said this. While I lay, mouth, forehead, eyelids growing dewy warm, with kisses balmier than half opening buds of April. Tithonus lay there with his mouth, his forehead, his eyelids all warm and dampened with Eos's kisses. Balmier, sweeter, more soothing than newly opened spring flowers, half opening buds of April. And he could hear the very lips that kissed him whispering mysterious, wild, sweet words like the song he once heard Apollo singing above Troy. Here we have an allusion, and could hear the lips that kissed whispering I knew not what of wild and sweet, like that strange song, a comparison, simile, like that strange song, alliteration, I heard Apollo sing, strange song sing, alliteration, while Ilion like a mist rose into towers. Again, we have alliteration, like the song I once heard Apollo singing above Troy, whose towers rose up as pale and ethereal as mists. Growing dewy warm, growing from cold to warm because of the sunrise, balmier, gentler, and of April, this expression means during the spring season. Who is Apollo? This is an allusion, so you must know this allusion. In Greek mythology, he is the god of the sun and also of musicians, and Ilion, the city of Troy. Yet hold me not forever in thine east. This is a plea. Please don't keep me here forever in your eastern domain. How can my nature longer mix with thine? How can Tithonus's deathless age carry on next to Eos's immortal youth? So the two can never unite. Tithonus and Eos do not belong together now. She is perennially young while he is perennially aged. This is the difference between the two. So, he will never be able to experience the release of death, and he will never be able to experience union with his beloved. Coldly thy rosy shadows bathe me. Coldly. The use of the words coldly and cold offers a contrast to the youthful passion and love depicted in lines 55 to 63 over here. And felt my blood glow with glow, this section. So there is a contrast. So he became warm. And now, coldly thy rosy shadows bathe me, cold are all thy lights, and cold my wrinkled feet. Physical appearance of Tithonus. He has become weak, his skin has wrinkled. Upon thy gleaming thresholds, when the steam floats up from those dim fields about the homes of happy men that have the power to die. Why are men happy? Because they are mortal beings. They experience a release of death, hence they are happy. According to Tithonus, the warm glowing shadows of Eos feel cold to him now. Eos's rosy light feels cold to him, and his withered feet feel cold as he passes through the shimmering doorways of Eos's palace. While far below, the morning mists rise from the fields and homes of the lucky people who are able to die, and grassy barrows of the happier dead. Men are happy, but the people who have already died, they are happier. So here Tithonus is jealous of normal, ordinary, mortal human beings. Sense of envy. So lucky people who are able to die, and from the grassy tombs of the even luckier people who are already dead. Release me and restore me. Release and restore, alliteration. This is his wish now. Release me. This is not just a wish. This is a plea, a request, an earnest request. Release me and restore me to the ground. Let me go. Give me back to the earth. Tithonus requests Eos to make him mortal once again. Thou seest all things, thou wilt see my grave, thou wilt renew thy beauty morn by morn. I earth in earth forget these empty courts, and thee returning on thy silver wheels. So, Eos can see everything. Eos will see Tithonus's grave also. Her beauty will always arise afresh over and over, morning by morning. And Tithonus, nothing more than dirt in dirt, will forget this hollow palace and forget the sight of Eos returning home in her silver-wheeled chariot. So you will be coming back every morning on your silver-white chariot drawn by your horses. Renew thy beauty morn by morn. Eos will appear more beautifully morning after morning. Release me and restore me. Let me be free. Let me go back to the earth so that I may be able to die. This is the way the poem ends. The poem ends with Tithonus's plea, request to Eos to give him back his mortality and take back his immortality. Very quickly, the themes of this poem. Number 1, old age and death. Tithonus is old. He is physically weak and has a withered appearance. Most mortals escape the pains of their old age by dying. For the immortal Tithonus, however, that simply is not an option. Tithonus is robbed of his only possible release. His longing for death and his envy of those happy men that have the power to die reminds the readers that death is not something which we must feel scared of. Death here is seen as merciful part of human life, as a necessary, natural, even merciful part of human life. Old age with its frailty and loss is far more unkind. So here we have this theme. And then the next theme, theme number 2, hubris and transgression. What is hubris? H-U-B-R-I-S. It is fatal flaw. And in the case of Tithonus, his hubris is his pride. He is filled with self-pride and vanity because he was chosen by the goddess of dawn herself, and he asks her to make him immortal, and in doing so he transgresses a grave boundary, the law that says all mortals must one day die, and now therefore he has to suffer the consequences. Immortal age beside immortal youth. This is theme number 2. Next we have grief and memory. Here Tithonus is in a sad state of mind and he remembers, he has the memory of his past life, of his life when he was young. Every day the withered Tithonus is confronted with the sight of his beloved Eos lighting up with the sunrise. Eos's youth and beauty become an inescapable torment to Tithonus. So this is significant. And he wants release in the form of death. And what is the justification of the title? Appropriateness of the title? Tithonus, the poem is named after its protagonist. The entire subject matter revolves around Tithonus, and through Tithonus, the poet Alfred Lord Tennyson shows us, highlights the consequences of reversing the natural cycle of life and death. Nature is all powerful and no man can alter or reverse the course of nature.